I haven't really had much of a relationship with Mary because I didn't grow up Catholic, and so I never understood her importance until coming to UD, and having this experience was completely eye-opening for me. It was the foundation of my relationship with Mary.
In May 2024, Sarah McLeeson was a rising senior at the University of Dayton. She and 10 other students participated in the Lead with Mary immersion, which brings together undergraduate students from each of the 3 Marianist Universities for a week-long service immersion trip. The experience in May 2024 was hosted by St. Mary's University in San Antonio, Texas, and was focused on the theme of immigration and hospitality.
LEAD is actually an acronym which stands for L, listen to the Holy Spirit, E, encounter the Marianist family, A, act for the common good, and D, deepen the call to serve.
That's the voice of Esme Lopez, who also participated in the immersion going into her final semester at St. Mary's University. She graduated in December 2024 with a bachelor's degree in psychology.
We spent about half the week in San Antonio doing service work with local organizations. And then we took a trip down to the Rio Grande Valley, which is right next to the US and Mexico border. And we were doing service work down there.
Our daily activities work was basically we'll wake up around 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning. Then from then, we'll meet up in one of the student lounges and we'll have breakfast. From then, that point was to discuss the plan throughout our day. So mostly it'll service, if we were to talk about service, it'll be from 9 to 4, 9 to 5, around that time frame. And then from then, we would have dinner, and then we will always end the night with a reflection to always encounter what we learned and what we got out of each experience.
Isaiah, our third panelist for this episode, was also a rising senior when he participated in the 2024 immersion. He was a physics major at Chaminade University of Honolulu.
There was lots of moving parts, and with all of us barely knowing each other, it took a day or two to get in the rhythm of transportation, and we were moving in a single 15-passenger van, so we were all squeezed in there.
I remember picking up Sarah in the airport, and we were like asking her all of these questions right off the bat. Where are you from? What are you studying? And we probably overwhelmed her. And we were like, let's take a tour of our school. The Marianists very much pride on family spirit. And I think that's what the 4 of us from St. Mary's and our 2 ministers have really integrated with us. Whoever joins us, we want to feel immediately connected. And so I think that helped, because I think within the next, day and a half, once the rest could join us, we were all just playing jokes off of each other. It was very much like we've known each other the past, year, and it was just 2.5 days.
I remember I was like trying to find this toy van and trying to find where I was supposed to be going. I got in, and they were just so kind and so amazing, but I was like, I just need a moment. I need to get myself together. And I think once I was ready to accept the love and the care from everyone, it was amazing. It took me a lot of time to get used to being in a completely different place, but also everyone else was already so comfortable there. So I had to pick it up pretty quickly. But of course, the caring spirit and everyone was so amazing.
These 2 spoke really about how we connected. For us, we are always anxious because, oh my goodness, this is the mainland. I don't know how we're going to integrate with all these people. But then once all of us arrived, we honestly really connected with everybody instantaneously. They accepted us for who we are. We accepted them for who they are. And we just kept sharing cultures, which was amazing.
I think it was interesting getting to know everyone because we are very diverse people. I'm from Cleveland and I've never been that far south. And so it was so interesting getting to know about the habits and the ways of living down there. It's so much different. It was so fun talking about, oh, you don't do this every day, or you don't say this, or you say that instead.
Was there something that aided you in forming that sense of community with each other?
One thing that really helped me was being very vulnerable. I grew up Lutheran, and so being very vulnerable and saying, guys, this is really an intimidating thing for me to go on this trip that I'm not technically in this tradition. I think that was the best way for me to form my relationships with everyone. it was nice that I had amazing people to rely on, because there'd be times where we'd be doing something or they'd be talking about something or we'd be in mass and I just wasn't quite used to it. And Esme or someone would lean over to me, explain what we're doing. I'm like, oh, okay, good. Thank you so much. I needed that help. So I think accepting the vulnerability really helped me.
From the vulnerability aspect, in my perspective, it came from the reflection questions coming at night. Of course, during the day, we're all focused on serving and just giving from our hearts. But when we have that time to reflect, we can really deeply understand each other's point of view. I can't relate to everybody's background, but it's just a simple being there for one another, which we all started doing. And every time becoming more of who we are and being more vulnerable from our own answers of what we learned. It was really quick where we really bonded together. I mean, we still had to grow with one another, but I felt the values never changed. Even though if we were leaving from Dayton, leaving from Hawaii, we all were still a family. I think it was our second day. We went to the grotto and we were looking at a statue of Mama Mary, and we did a decade of rosary in our own native tongue. There were Spanish, Tongan, I did Chamorro. It was just all these different languages. We all have different backgrounds, but we all came together just to grow in our faith.
This trip was themed on immigration and the culture of South Texas. I'm wondering if each of you could just share what motivated you to pursue this opportunity.
I've always felt like immigration on the southern border has been a distant issue for me. I wanted to grasp it more. And so I saw this opportunity come up, and I realized the best way for me to truly understand the complexities of it was to engage with it directly. I've also been really interested in deepening my faith in the Marianist tradition. Like I said, I grew up Lutheran and I haven't grown up in the tradition, and it's been an amazing journey to get to know it more and to practice it. So I was blessed to see this opportunity come up in campus ministries.
I would say this was a leap of faith for me, because when I was looking at the application, it was talk about immigration. I was hesitant to apply because I was like, okay, immigration problems and all these topics I only see on the news. We don't have any experience or any mindset of how to go into this process and how to really understand it. But honestly, I'm glad I did, because it's not what you really see on the news. It's really something you really got to see for yourself, which I felt the Lord was calling for us just to deepen our perspective and deepen our hearts on this one.
The stuff that we were doing hit very close to home. And for me, that was one thing that I did want to share with everybody was you may not grow up with them, but that doesn't mean that these people aren't near you or that it's more common than what you think. It's been my story of who I proudly am, and it would just be so nice for people to understand that the system is hard. People aren't choosing willingly to leave their home country. And so being able to have that personal experience with my parents and my culture, but through the lens of what these people are now going through, like the next generation.
I'm curious if each of you could highlight some of the service sites and how the service impacted your sense of the common good or a call to serve.
I'll talk about when we went to the Valley, which is the latter half of the week. We went to a respite center and we were there doing a little bit of everything. I had the opportunity to entertain the kids the first day that we got there, but it was the second day that I think truly made a bigger impact. And I was in charge of the pharmacy. And so whatever they need, whether it be baby formula, toothpaste, just basic necessities, we were in charge of handing out, and I was the one who knew the most Spanish. So I was the one interacting with most of the families, and that touched me because giving them what we take for granted, like the toothpaste, a hairbrush, hair ties, basic necessities that we need that they have to ask for because they've uplifted their entire lives to be here in this holding center until their families that are sponsoring them can take them. A lot of them were coming from Venezuela and Haiti, escaping all the gangs and just the politics, and being able to connect with the little kids or even the parents that they're like, oh, like you speak Spanish? And I'm like, yeah. And just seeing their faces light up. I think I took for granted that I knew Spanish up until that moment. I think just being able to give them that comfort, and I definitely learned a lot.
I definitely can agree with Esme on taking for granted ibuprofen and water in the food, the simplest things that I have daily. And I am so thankful for now, but these are things I take for granted. Esme talked about knowing Spanish, and I don't know Spanish. And so that was a major challenge being at the Respite Center, but it was also a unique way of connecting with people. We had to work for communication, yet there were people standing at our counter all day long just because they wanted to hang out with us and chit chat with someone who is in the United States. I remember doing puzzles with them, and we were speaking to each other, 2 different languages, but it was still some sort of love and aspect of shared humanity going on between us. I really enjoyed when we went to Catholic Charities in San Antonio. I think it was like this St. Stephen's Center. It was a place that anyone can come and get food for free. They have a certain amount of time to go shopping for food, which includes fresh foods and clothing. And that place I really enjoyed because I work with a local nonprofit in Dayton called Access to Excess. And they were doing the same model of collecting food from grocery stores and farms where it would go to waste, but instead it's given to people who will use it. There's a lot of people working towards these goals of not only sustainability, but supporting and loving others. And so that gave me like a different aspect of the common good that we're thousands of miles apart, but 2 different organizations are doing the similar thing in Dayton and in San Antonio. So that was a cool moment.
The one that stood out for me was Haven for Hope in downtown San Antonio. It's a big facilities where they would house homeless people. We were cleaning the staircase of a building for the LGBTQ teens. We also were organizing clothes. I didn't know what to expect. And this was one of my first service in the mainland, and just how much people really put their love and wanted to donate any extra clothes for people who didn't have anything really caught my attention.
We did get a walkthrough of another respite center through Catholic Charities in San Antonio, where they also get housed until sponsors can come and pick them up or get them their next location.
One thing that really stood out to me when we went on that tour, when we drove up, you have to go through a police gate and there's a bunch of police officers there. And that sort of threw me off at first. And then I realized it's just for safety and protection. They talked a lot about how the migrants that are staying there, they're allowed to leave the campus, which is just one building, so it's not that big of a campus, but they highly suggest otherwise because it's not safe. They can't protect them once they're off the property. And so that was an eye-opening thing that they've come to the United States, but the battle is still going. It was hard because they talked about how McDonald's and Chipotle and Burger King, all these fast food and all these bright stores are right across the street. And they're like, oh, I want to go have some good food, but having to stay on the campus. It's definitely like a difficulty that I would not have thought of.
I'm curious to hear how those experiences impacted the call to serve for each of you.
The call to serve after this immersion is just being there for our brothers and sisters, just simplifying that we just need to serve one another.
Service can be as simple as like being there for someone, having a good conversation with them, telling them that you're praying for them and loving them. I think that's something that I didn't think was a major thing until I was down there in the valley and not being able to talk with one other person, but I'm there loving them and they know I'm supporting them and I'm there for them. I think that was a new definition to service for me.
For me, the word more than anything was dignity. Definitely made me more aware of what's happening around me because St. Mary's is on the west side of San Antonio, so it's not a very rich city. It's actually very underfunded and not very well taken care of. And you see the homeless people who are at the shelter or by the freeway. And I took that with me a lot this summer. I was in Illinois doing some research and there was a lot of homeless people. And I thought the least I had was buy them a meal. And I don't think I ever would have done that or thought about that without this experience. We're all humans. They're humans. They're people that feel and act like you and me. They just have a different story. And so I think knowing that and having that perspective makes me want to conquer the entire world and solve every issue possible. So I think it has light that fire in me of I want to do more. I want to keep on doing more.
I'm curious if you can talk about pieces of the immersion trip that allowed you to encounter the Marianist family and the impact that this immersion may have had on your own understanding of the charism.
We did morning mass and breakfast at the Marianist residence here at St. Mary's. Holy Rosary, a parish right on our campus, hosted us. Casa Maria also hosted us. And that's how we got to know all the different brothers and just talk to the retired brothers who have all lived such wonderful lives.
I grew a ton in my knowledge and understanding and love for the Marianist tradition and the Marianist family. I think the emphasis on inclusivity and hospitality was absolutely amazing. Everyone in the Marianist family was so welcoming to random students from Ohio and Hawaii. They welcomed us into our homes and cared so deeply for us. I think that's something that really struck me. It's reinforced the idea that we're all connected in a shared humanity and we're all connected in God's will for us to love others. I got so much from this trip, but one of the main things was learning more about the Marianist tradition and how awesome that was. And having those family meals when Marianist family would cook for us, that was such a cool experience. And getting to talk with them and their hospitality was amazing.
For me, what brought in the Marianist family was eating dinner at the end of the day all together, whether it was somebody that I knew from school cooking us a meal. We had a St. Mary's alumni who hosted us in her house with her family and made tostadas, which felt like I was just back home with my family because it was loud music and 20 different conversations happening and all of us just hanging out together. And I think I just truly felt like I never left home. And that's how I felt the entire week anytime we came together at the end of the day and had a meal. And so to be able to do that with Marianists surrounding us, whether it was Holy Rosary cooking for us, or even on our last day where we each made food from where we were from, and just eating that and sharing all these different tastes and trying new foods and all the work that was put into it, I think just made me feel so glad I chose this university and so happy I found the Marianists 4 years ago. And they've given me wonderful opportunities. And I hope I can continue to have that family spirit wherever I go next.
How might you have grown in relationship with Mary through this immersion? What does that mean for you now and moving forward?
I definitely have reflected more on my relationship with her. And I actually decided I'm going to become a consecrated lay Marianist. And that was honestly with the help of the immersion trip and understanding how pivotal of a role she plays in our faith and who we are and what we stand for. I just start my prayers, "Hey, Mom," because that's honestly who she is. She's our mom at the end of the day. And it's made me feel closer and definitely understand who she is in our culture as Our Lady of Guadalupe. She's who I hope to become in my faith and understanding of who I am.
Going back to the grotto, when I was looking at the picture, I was like, wow, Mama Mary is so beautiful. I thought I knew Mama Mary, but just looking at her and all her beauty, I was like, a mother's love can go a long way. And just carrying that sense of caring for one another and looking out for our brothers and sisters. Just a week after leaving Mary, I left on a medical mission to Costa Rica. And there in the respite center, I was talking to one of the kids who was from Nicaragua. I was like, he just looks so happy, but I didn't know the story and the problems Nicaragua was having. In Costa Rica, I was hearing more about the background, more of the hardships they're going through. And I was like, let me just do what Mama Mary does and just give love to one another, give God's love and just simply care for all of our brothers and sisters, which is not hard to do. But I found that this is the thing that lacks in the world, is just loving one another.
I had a conversation with a friend on campus before I left for the trip, and he was saying how he loves his relationship with Mary, and I was struggling to understand it. It wasn't until I had this experience of growing in my faith and learning what Mary wants us to be doing. It was the cornerstone, the foundation of my relationship with her. And now I've been growing so much more. I think another cool thing was that I flew down to San Antonio and the next day was Mother's Day. And I was bummed that I wasn't with my mom on Mother's Day. That was something I was really upset about because I was just sad I was missing her already. And I remember one of my peers had said, "Oh, well, it's Mother's Day, but we're still with Mama Mary." And that was like, oh my gosh, you're right.
Before we hear Esme, Isaiah, and Sarah's responses to our concluding question, I offer a word of thanks for listening to this episode of Sharing Our Marianist Stories, a production of the North American Center for Marianist Studies in Dayton, Ohio. I'm Mike Bennett, Media Administrator for NACMS. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, follow us on social media at This Is NACMS, and utilize the resources on our website at www.nacms.org. And now, let's hear their responses to our concluding question. We know the Marianist founders corresponded through letter writing. So if you were going to write a letter to anyone, dead or alive, and be guaranteed a response, who would you write to and what would be the topic?
I'd do it to my grandma who passed away when I was younger, because I've only heard stories, and I'd title it, "Was My Mom Right About What You Used to Say?" There's always stories of your grandma used to say this, your grandma used to say that. And I'm like, was she actually saying these things? Or am I being gaslighted too? So I'd be like, is this true? Did you actually say these things?
I think I would also pick my Oma, who's my grandma. She passed when I was like 10 or 11, but I remember always viewing her as an amazing woman of God. She was someone who was at church every Sunday and embodied the words of Christ and was deeply rooted in her faith. And she had been through a lot in her life, migrating from Germany. And so I would write a letter to her and hope to make her proud of the woman I've become and the things I've been doing.
So I'm a twin. My brother passed away when we were babies. I would write a letter to him because every day I always wear a bracelet just thinking of him. I think it was just a sense of having my faith grounded and just thinking of how to always make him proud and just always how to be better every day.